Welcome to High School Academic Derby, brought to you by the Onslow County Schools. Today we have a match between Jacksonville and Swansboro. Our scorekeeper will be Gail Thomas. The Jacksonville coach is Tony Zernheld, and these are his players for round one.
Lizzie Coleman, sophomore.
Owen Schnitzler, junior.
Ryan Rush, senior.
Roman Peterson, junior.
Julie White coaches the Swansboro team, and her players for this round are
Christina Stair, sophomore.
Lacey Miglio, sophomore.
Katie Collins, junior.
Aaron Wooten, junior.
players. We start with a math calculation, so I'll be reading it for you twice. A quarterback completes 9 of his first 31 passes. How many consecutive passes must be completed in his next game to reach a total completion percentage of exactly 50%? A quarterback completes 9 of his first 31 passes. How many consecutive passes must be completed in his next game to reach a total completion percentage of exactly 50%? Time's up. Sorry, the answer is 13. Toss up dealing with foodstuffs. You can make it from white wine, apple cider, or rice because the process is similar in all cases. Let ethanol ferment until it creates acetic acid. Name this substance found in a glass bottle in most kitchens that makes up a large, Brian?
Vinegar.
Vinegar is correct. For your bonus, name the lead singers of these rock bands who went on to have their own successful solo careers. Number 1, The Police. Number 2, Matchbox 20. Number 3, Pearl Jam. Number 4, Hootie and the Blowfish. Owen.
For number 1, we have Sting. For number 2, we have Rob Thomas. And for number 4, we have Darius Rucker.
Those are correct for 6 points. Number 3, Swansboro.
We do not have anything.
That was Eddie Vedder. Science. It is often brightly colored to attract insects and other pollen-carrying animals to it. Name this structure found in flowers that often looks beautiful even to humans. Brian.
Petal.
Petal is correct. For your bonus, I'll name a function. You name the organelle within an individual cell that generally does this function. Number 1, digestion. Number 2, respiration. Number 3, protein synthesis. Number 4, food storage. Owen.
For number 1, we have lysosome. For number 2, we have mitochondria. For number 3, we have ribosome. And for number 4, we have vacuole.
Those are all correct for 10 points. Language arts. Actually, spelling here. If your team loses this game on the last question, your coach might become slightly hysterical. Spell hysterical. Katie.
Hystericial.
Incorrect. Want to try Jacksonville? Need a reset, please. Lizzie.
Hystericial.
That's correct. For your bonus, identify these words or phrases added to the Merriam-Webster Dictionary in 2009. A sum of money required by Congress to be spent for a specific project. Number 2, a time period spent away from work but without leaving town. Number 3, a 2-word term for a fake online identity you create that praises you for your goodness as a person. Number 4, a colorful generic term for any job related to the environmental industry. Owen.
For number 2, we have staycation, and for number 4, we have tree hugger.
Staycation is correct for 2 points. 1, 3, or 4, Swansboro.
For number 4, we have green collar.
That is correct for 2. The answer to number 1 is earmark, and for number 3 is sock puppet. Social studies. It had somewhere between 300 and 900 members at any one time and was finally fixed by Caesar Augustus at 600 members, 500 more than the equivalent U.S. group has today. Name, Owen.
The Roman Senate.
Correct. For your bonus, I will name a section from Article 1 of the Illinois Constitution. You name the amendment to the U.S. Constitution that discusses the same topic. Okay, for number 1, self-incrimination and double jeopardy. Number 2, the quartering of soldiers. Number 3, searches, seizures, privacy, and interceptions. Number 4, freedom of speech. Owen.
For number 1, we have the 14th. For number 2, we have the 4th. And for number 4, we have the 1st.
Number 4 is correct for 2 points. Swansboro, 1, 2, or 3?
For number 1, we have the 9th. For number 2, we have the 3rd. And for number 3, we have the 6th.
Number 2 is the 3rd Amendment. The answer to number 1 is the 5th Amendment. And for number 3 is the 4th. Math toss up a calculation, so I'll read it twice. The perimeter of a rectangle is 28 inches. If one pair of sides is each 6 inches long, how long is each of the other 2 sides? The perimeter of a rectangle is 28 inches. If one pair of sides, Brian?
8.
That's correct. For your bonus, give these geometric terms. Number 1, 2 lines that are not in the same plane and do not intersect. Number 2, this type of drawing uses vertical lines to show an object's vertical sides and lines at 30 degrees with horizontal to show the object's horizontal sides. Number 3, the perpendicular distance from the center of a hexagon to the side of a hexagon. And number 4, a straight line that, unlike a chord, cuts through a circle at 2 points and keeps going. Owen.
For number 1, we have obscure, and for number 3, we have abscissa.
Those are not correct. Any of the 4, Swansboro?
For number 1, we have parallel. For number 3, we have 90 degrees. And for number 4, we have line.
Those are not correct either. Number 1 is a skew line. Number 2, an isometric drawing. Number 3, the apothem. Number 4, a secant. Film. Its Monty Python version originally contained a kangaroo until the Pope ordered it removed. What classic painting was also done by Salvador Dali, who included a person's torso floating above the scene, by Tintoretto, who included several servants in addition to the usual 13 people, and by Leonardo, Brian?
The Last Supper.
Correct. For your bonus, give these terms often used in interior design. Number 1, the fiber that comes from Angora goats. Number 2, the fire-resistant section of a floor right in front of the fireplace. Number 3, an elegant light fixture hung from the ceiling and containing many small lights. Number 4, adjective used to describe the colors white or gray and their various shades, especially when used in paint or furniture. Owen.
For number 1, we have wool. For number 2, we have hearth. And for number 3, we have chandelier.
2 and 3 are correct for 4 points. Swansboro, 1 or 4?
For number 1, we have polyester, and for number 4, we have neutral.
Neutral is correct for 2 points. The answer to number 1 was mohair. That's the end of round 1. We'll come back with a score in round 2 in just a moment.
Here is my handle and here is my spout.
When I get all steamed up, then I shout.
Tip me over and pour me out. Oh. The smallest moments can have the biggest impact on a child's life. Cheers. Take time to be a dad today.
After one round, our score is Jacksonville 36, Swansboro 6. We have 2 new players to meet for Jacksonville.
Kira Nasso, senior.
Davion Simmons, junior.
Players will start round 2 with a science toss-up. Most of its craters and other features are named after women, past or present, real or not. Sometimes called the morning star or evening star, it is the brightest object. Katie?
Venus?
Correct. For your bonus, name these parts of a common telescope. Number 1, the part of the telescope you look through to see anything. Number 2, the 3-legged device many telescopes sit on, which can also be used to hold a camera in place. Number 3, this connects the telescope to that 3-legged device, allowing the telescope to be pivoted and moved around without falling on the ground. Number 4, this device that comes in peep sight, reflex sight, and telescope sight types is used to aim the telescope at a star. Katie?
For number 1, we have lens. For number 2, we have tripod. For number 3, we have base. And for number 4, we have sextant.
Number 2 is correct for 2 points. Jacksonville, 1, 3, or 4?
For number 3, we have stand, and for number 4, we have sight.
Those are not correct. Number 1 is the eyepiece, and number 3 is the mount, number 4 is the finder. Math calculation, so 2 readings. On a standard XY plane, calculate the slope of the line between the points 7, 0, and -3, -12. On a standard XY plane, calculate the slope of the line between the points 7, 0, and -3, -12. Sorry, Brian.
-6/5.
Incorrect. Swansboro? It's 6/5. Literature. He wrote some of his most famous works during the years he lived in Vermont, though most of those works had settings in India. Name this British author whose time... Christina?
Rudyard Kipling.
Correct. For your bonus, one of fiction's great battles between good and evil came at Reichenbach Falls. So answer the following questions about that. For numbers 1 and 2, name the good guy and the bad guy who fought each other. Number 3, name the country where they fought at Reichenbach Falls. Number 4, give the British author of the whole scene. Katie?
For number 1, we have Sherlock Holmes. For number 2, we have Professor James Moriarty. For number 3, we have Switzerland. And for number 4, we have Sir Arthur Conan Doyle.
Those are all correct for 10 points. Science toss-up. During photosynthesis, X molecules of glucose are converted into 6X molecules of carbon dioxide and 6X molecules of water. To create 1,500 molecules of carbon dioxide, how many molecules of glucose must undergo photosynthesis? And the answer is 250. Social studies. In England, if an escapee could avoid capture for a year and a day, he was free. In Russia, however, the system of slavery was harsher and not abolished until 1861. Name the lowest class of people within the feudal system that were often attached to the land. Katie?
Serfs.
That's correct. For your bonus, answer these questions about the Great Depression. Number 1, the Fair Labor Standards Act created this economic measure, today equal to $7.25 per hour. Number 2, an empty pants pocket turned inside out became a flag named for this U.S. president. Number 3, more than 1,000 economists opposed this punitive tariff that became law in 1930. Number 4, this act from that time still requires union labor rates to be paid on federal construction jobs. Katie?
For number 1, we have minimum wage. For number 2, we have Hoover. For number 3, we have Howley Smoot.
Those are all correct for 6 points, Jacksonville. Number 4. That was the Davis-Bacon Act. Fine arts. It was stolen from a Norwegian museum on the opening day of the 1994 Winter Olympics in Lillehammer. Identify this scary, best-known painting of Edvard Munch. Owen.
The Scream.
That's correct. And for your bonus, you'll also answer fine arts questions about the Art Deco movement. Number 1, the Art Deco movement became popular in which century? Number 2, it got its name from an exhibition in which European capital city? Number 3, one Art Deco building in New York City is named for this major American automaker. Number 4, that building has a facing made of this metal popular in Art Deco. Owen.
For number 1, we have the 20th century. For number 2, we have Paris. For number 3, we have the Chrysler Building. And for number 4, we have steel.
Those are all correct for 10 points. Math calculation, so I'll read it twice. Calculate the perimeter of a pentagon with sides 1 2/5 inches long. Calculate the perimeter of a pentagon with sides 1 2/5 inches long. Brian.
7.
That's correct. For your bonus, you need to write down some basic facts about which I will then ask you questions. The state of confusion has a tax rate based on income. You pay 5% of your first $20,000, 6% of the next $30,000, 7% of the next $50,000, 8% of everything over that. So let me go through those again. 5% of your first 20, 6% of the next 30, 7% of the next 50, and 8% on everything over that. So, to the nearest dollar, what is the minimum amount of income for someone that reaches the 8% level? That's your first question. Number 2, calculate the tax due for someone making exactly $18,000. Number 3, calculate the tax due for someone making $45,000. And number 4, calculate the tax due on someone making $90,000. Owen.
For number 1, we have 100,001. And for number 2, we have 900.
Those are both correct for 4 points, Swansboro, 3 and 4. For number 3, it's 2,500, and for number 4, 5,600. Literature. Give the specific month, day, and year mentioned in the third line of Longfellow's poem, Paul Revere's Ride. Brian.
18th of April of 75.
That's correct. For your bonus, answer these questions about American author Washington Irving. Number 1, the state where his 2 most famous short stories are set. Number 2, the cemetery where he's buried shares a name with one of his title locations. Name that cemetery. Number 3, he was born in this year, 4 years before the Constitution was ratified. And number 4, Irving wrote a biography of this famed explorer. Name the explorer. Owen.
For number 1, we have Massachusetts. For number 2, we have Sleepy Hollow. And for number 3, we have 1777.
Sleepy Hollow is correct for 2 points. 1, 3, or 4, Swansboro?
For number 1, we have Virginia. For number 3, we have 1772. And for number 4, we have Columbus.
Columbus is correct for 2 points. Number 1 is New York, and number 3 is 1783. Social studies. The National Historic Park. We won't get to this one. That's the end of round 2. We'll come back with a score in the lightning round in just a moment.
They're coming. Places, everybody.
Light check. 1, 2, 1, 2.
Everything looks good on our end.
And lights.
Come alive with the forest. Visit discovertheforest.org to find a forest near you.
And our score is Jacksonville 58, Swansboro 32. And we have one new player to meet for Jacksonville.
Diana Luther, senior.
All of the lightning round answers will begin with the letter H. Ready? Capital of Vietnam. Katie.
Helsinki.
Incorrect. King who ordered the death of John the Baptist. Lizzie.
Herod.
Correct. Caribbean country whose capital is Port. Brian.
Haiti.
Correct. Term used to designate water with a heavy chemical content. Brian.
Hard water.
Right. English king who had 6 wives. Brian.
Henry VIII.
Correct. Chemical produced by glands that control body processes. Brian.
Hormones.
Right. To cut as with an axe, also to conform strictly to the rule. Diana.
Hume.
Right. A place where a living thing lives. Katie.
Habitat.
Right. Something that foreshadows what is to come. Lizzie.
Harbinger.
Right. Violent and needless disturbance. Katie.
Havoc.
Correct. Greenish brown color. It's also a tree nut. Katie.
Hazel.
Right. Pay close attention to. Katie.
Heed.
Correct. The practice of cultivation of land or raising of livestock. Lizzie.
Husbandry.
Right. An act of mass destruction and loss of life. Half of a sphere. Katie.
Hemisphere.
Correct. Person entitled to property of title upon another's death. Owen.
Heir.
Correct. A state of violent mental agitation. A unit of frequency equal to 1 cycle per second. Brian.
Hertz.
Correct. A tool for driving nails into wood. Brian.
Hammer.
That's right. A free personal email service. Katie.
Hotmail.
Correct. All right, the only ones we didn't get, the capital of Vietnam is Hanoi. An act of mass destruction and loss of life is a holocaust, and a state of violent mental agitation, hysteria. We'll add in the lightning round points and come back with our final score in just a moment.
actually got into teaching out of respect for my grandfather. He wanted me to follow in his footsteps. He was a math teacher for 35 years, and so was my uncle. I really didn't consider it at first. It really wasn't until I got into student teaching that I just fell in love with it. I mean, being in the classroom, being interactive with the students, it was just one of the best times of my entire life, and I loved it so much that I've been doing it for, well, it's my 15th year now, and I plan on doing it as long as I can.
And our final score today is Jacksonville 82, Swansboro 44. I'd like to congratulate Jacksonville on completing an undefeated season. They are our regular season champions, even though we do have one match coming up right after this one. So please stay with us for Dixon against Southwest.
I teach because I want to give my students the passion that I had about math. So I try to be enthusiastic so that maybe one of them, I don't know, they might be a math teacher or go into engineering. And if they don't go into math, at least they can see the passion that I bring and that they can at least enjoy it. And what I've been learning over the years is that it's not just about the knowledge, but it's also about getting to know the students and making connections. And I hope that's what I bring to my students, and that's why I teach.
Why career and technical education? Career and technical education gives high school students a head start on preparing for college and their careers. Onslow County Schools offers 3 technology towers that provide students with unique experiences in small learning communities. Southwest High School's new shop facilities provide the core foundation of the Advanced Automotive and Transportation Technology Tower. Students who are interested in automobiles, motorcycles, and other types of engine repair and design have hands-on training working with the latest tools and technology in the industry and can earn valuable certifications in the process that will make them job ready by graduation. Jacksonville High School is home to the Advanced Construction Technology Tower. Courses offered include carpentry, blueprint reading, and electrical trades. In fact, the newly expanded electrical trade shop allows students to develop skills that construction industries require when hiring. As demand increases for workers in science, technology, engineering, and mathematics-based careers, Northside High School rises to the occasion with the Advanced Applied Technologies Tower. Courses such as alternative energy, architectural design, biotechnology, digital electronics, and robotics provide students the opportunity to delve deep into engineering and technology issues and provide real-world working experiences. Students, while still in high school, can acquire technology skills, making them knowledgeable and competent even before they complete a more formal education in these fields. The technology towers are not the only thing great about CTE. In fact, CTE students have higher graduation rates and college enrollment rates than non-CTE students. So why CTE? Why not CTE? Career and technology education, not just a head start, but education that works for Onslow County students.
And welcome back to High School Academic Derby, brought to you by the Onslow County Schools. Our second match today is between Dixon and Southwest. The Dixon team is coached by Ashley DeMartin, and her players for this round are
Aiden Yanko, sophomore.
Jackson Lee, junior.
Rhiannon Schmidt, junior. Bailey Williams, junior.
The Southwest coach is Krista Watts. Her players for this round will be
Kalijah Moore, sophomore.
Julia Yates, junior. Morgan Starling, Jr. Christina Andrews, Jr.
We'll start with a question about national parks. The National Historic Park now claims that conditions there weren't really as bad as commonly thought. Most soldiers had enough food and clothing while there, and most of those that died were victims of disease. Name this location near Philadelphia where the American Army spent the winter of 1777-78. Jackson.
Ford Valley.
Incorrect. Southwest. Valley Forge is the answer. Music. Johann Quantz composed hundreds of pieces for this musical instrument that has both a bass version and an alto version. Identify this metallic woodwind instrument that also has a higher pitched version called a piccolo. Jackson.
Flute.
That's right. For your bonus, give these musical terms. Number 1, term for the first chair or leader of the first violin section. Number 2, term for the first chair or leader of all other instrument sections in an orchestra. Number 3, the English term for the Baroque instrument called a cembalo in Italian. And number 4, the general term for the music played in a church as the minister leaves the building. Jackson.
For number 1, we have virtuoso, and for number 4, we have hymnal.
Those are not correct. Any of the 4, Southwest?
No, sir.
Number 1 is the concert master. Number 2, principal. Number 3, a harpsichord. And number 4, a recessional. Math calculation, so I'll read it twice for you. In terms of pi, calculate the volume of a sphere with a radius of 9 inches. In terms of pi, calculate the volume of a sphere with a radius of 9 inches. Time's up, and the answer is 972 pi cubic inches. Another math question, and again I'll read it twice for you. Angles A, B, C, and D combine to form a straight line. Calculate the values of A, B, C, and D if B and C add to 108 degrees, A and C are complementary, and D is 3 times the value of A. Angles A, B, C, and D combine to form a straight line. Calculate the values of A, B, C, and D. If B and C add 108 degrees, A and C are complementary, and D is 3 times the value of A. Okay, time's up. The answers are A is 18, B is 36, C is 72, and D is 54. Social studies. It kept accurate time throughout the Blitz, but in 1962, heavy snow caused it to ring in the new year late. In 2007, it was stopped for 6 weeks to undergo repairs. Name this bell that celebrated its 150th anniversary in 2009 in its location in the clock tower of London's Westminster Palace. Jackson.
Big Ben.
Right. And for your bonus, answer the following questions about the 19th century gold rush. The 19th century gold rush there began shortly after gold was discovered by James Marshall. So for number 1, name this western state. Number 2, identify the location within that state where gold was found, a place named for its owner. Number 3, According to that owner, he first heard about the gold discovery in January of what year? And number 4, name the river where that gold was first found. Jackson.
For number 1, we have California. For number 2, we have Pasadena. And for number 3, we have 1949.
California is correct for 2 points. 2, 3, or 4, Southwest.
For number 2, we have Sacramento, and for number 3, we have 1861.
Number 2 is Sutter's Mill. Number 3, 1848. Number 4 is the American River. Language arts. The words alcohol and algebra are 2 of the words beginning with the letters AL that have come into English from what Middle Eastern language? Answer is Arabic. Science. Biologists may use it to study how a seed germinates or how a small animal moves within a very small area. A glass one is reusable, but a plastic one must always be disposed of. Name this small circular container whose Julia.
Petri dish.
Petri dish is correct. For your bonus, give these terms relating to tornadoes. Number 1, this is the center part of a tornado that stays very calm. Number 2, if a tornado hasn't touched the ground yet, it is referred to by this 2-word term. Number 3, this is a tornado that passes over an ocean. And number 4, name the scale that measures tornado strength from 0 to 5. Morgan.
For number 1, we have eye. For number 2, we have funnel cloud. And for number 3, we have water spout.
Those are all correct. For 6, number 4, Dixon?
We do not have it.
It's called the Fujita scale. Social studies. It was adopted instead of the Morgenthau Plan, which would have turned Germany into an agricultural country after World War II. Identify this financial plan that restored Western Europe to health after the war and was named for the American Secretary of State who put it together. It was called the Marshall Plan. Math calculation, I'll read it twice. Using a compass and straight edge to trisect a 78-degree angle gives 3 angles that are each how many degrees? Using a compass and straight edge to trisect a 78-degree angle gives 3 angles that are each how many degrees? Aiden.
26.
26 is right. For your bonus, you go babysitting and bring, and I'll read these basic facts twice before we get to the questions themselves. You bring 10 toy cars in a bag for the child to play with. 3 of those toy cars are yellow, 4 blue, 2 black, and 1 red. So you have 10 total. 3 yellow, 4 blue, 2 black, 1 red. What is the fractional probability in lowest terms that, number 1, the first car the child picks from the bag is blue? Number 2, he puts the blue car back, takes out 2 more cars, and gets in order a yellow one and a red one. What's the probability of that? Number 3, of the 8 cars left in the bag, what is the probability that if he takes 2 more out, he gets both black ones? And number 4, of the 6 cars left in the bag, the next 3 he takes out are a yellow one and then 2 blue ones. What is the probability of that? Jackson.
For number 1, we have 2/5. For number 2, we have 5/40. For number 3, we have 1/4.
Number 1 is correct for 2 points. Southwest, 2, 3, or 4?
For number 2, we have 1/30th, and for number 3, we have 1/16th.
Number 2 is correct, 1/30th, and the other answer is number 3 is 1/28th, and number 4 is 1/5. That's the end of our first round. We'll come back with the score and our second round in just a moment.
People think I'm trash, but they're wrong. Today I'm just an aluminum can, but one day I could be a stadium.
And after one round, we have a tie score at 10. We have new players to meet for both teams. Let's start with the ones from Dixon.
Alex Gartman, Jr.
Joel Jimenez, sophomore.
Austin Brewer, sophomore.
And for Southwest?
Tristan Gwynn, sophomore.
April Gower, freshman.
Maddox Bulris, junior.
Lisa Urban, sophomore.
We start with the mythology toss-up. This mythological daughter of Zeus and Leda was abducted by Theseus, married to Menelaus, and seduced by Paris. Name this woman whose beautiful face is said to have launched 1,000 ships. Jackson.
Helen.
That's correct. For your bonus, answer the following questions about this novel. Its very long original title includes the words, "The Life and Most Surprising Adventures of blank blank," who lived 28 years all alone in an uninhabited island on the coast of America. Question 1. Name the title character of this novel. Number 2. Name the author of the novel. Number 3. Identify the title character's companion named for a day of the week. And number 4. This title character lives all of his years on this island during which century? Jackson.
For number 2, we have Homer. For number 4, we have 11.
Those are not correct. Southwest, any of the 4?
For number 3, we have Wednesday.
The title character is Robinson Crusoe. It was written by Daniel Defoe. His companion was Friday, and it took place during the 17th century. Science. After he became the first black man ever to teach at Iowa State University, he went to Alabama and taught farmers how to rotate their crops. Name this scientist whose time teaching at the Tuskegee Institute was partly spent inventing products that could be made from pecans, sweet potatoes, and peanuts. Jarrell.
George Washington Carver.
That's correct. For your bonus, name these parts of a microscope. Number 1, the square or rectangular area where you mount a slide so you can look at it. Number 2, the circular light source underneath that area that lets you see something. Number 3, the curved piece that connects the tube of the microscope to the base. Number 4, the piece of circular glass that you look through to see a slide. Jackson.
For number 2, we have lamp, and from number 4, we have lens.
Lens is correct for 2 points. 1, 2, or 3, Southwest?
For number 2, we have bulb, and for number 3, we have arm.
Arm is correct for 2. Number 1 is the stage. Number 2 is the illuminator. Social studies. Born with the name Araminta on Maryland's eastern shore, she became the first American woman to command a military operation when she helped free several hundred slaves in South Carolina in 1863. Name this woman, an escaped slave herself, who led hundreds to freedom on the underground. Jarrell.
Harriet Tubman.
Correct. For your bonus, name the cities where you'd find these airports voted the worst to sleep in overnight by the website sleepinginairports.com. Number 1, Fiumicino Airport. Number 2, John F. Kennedy International Airport. Number 3, Sheremetyevo Airport. And number 4, Charles de Gaulle Airport. Jackson.
For number 2, we have New York. For number 3, we have India.
New York's correct for 2, 1, 3, or 4, Southwest.
We don't have anything.
Number 1 is Rome. Number 3, Moscow. Number 4, Paris. Science. Named for a British scientist, it usually causes some mental disability. Most people with it also have congenital heart problems. Identify this syndrome that causes some people to have the normal 46 chromosomes in some cells but 47 in other cells, with the extra one always being number 21. Alex.
Down syndrome.
Correct. For your bonus, answer these questions about Nobel Prize winners in medicine. Number 1, this Italian studied the nervous system and has a cell organelle named for him. Number 2, Wilhelm Einthoven won for developing this process to show heartbeats on paper. Number 3, Baruch Blumberg shared a prize for developing a vaccine against this liver disease. Number 4, Banting and MacLeod discovered this compound important to diabetics. Jackson.
For number 2, we have cartography, and for number 4, we have insulin.
Insulin's correct for 2, 1, 2, or 3, Southwest.
For 2, we have EKG, and for 3, we have polio.
EKG is correct for 2. Number 1 is Golgi, and number 3 is hepatitis. Math calculation, 2 readings here. Solve this inequality for x. The quantity negative 3x plus 13 is less than or equal to the quantity 8x minus 20. The quantity 3x plus 13 is less than, Jarrell.
X equals 3.
X, be more specific, please.
Positive or negative 3? Or x is less than or equal to 3.
Less than or
equal to 3.
Equal to 3. That's incorrect. Southwest. Lisa.
X is greater than or equal to 3?
Greater than or equal to 3. For your bonus, the Marcine prime numbers can be calculated by the formula 2 to the p power minus 1, where p is also a prime number greater than 1. Thus, the first Marcine prime number is 3, that is 2 raised to the second power minus 1. Use this formula to calculate the next 4 Marcine prime numbers. Maddox.
For number 2, we have 5. For number 3, we have 7. And for number 4, we have 11.
Those are not correct. Dixon, any of the 4?
Nope.
In order, the answers are 7, 31, 127, 2047. Literature. The stories Thief of Hearts, The Magic Paintbrush, The Joy Luck Club, and Mimi Loves the Morning all tell of American families who have ancestors in what Asian country that is also told about in the story Millicent Men, Girl Genius? Alex.
Japan.
Incorrect. Southwest. April.
China.
China's correct. For your bonus, name these Old Testament characters. Number 1, he lost his worldly goods and his children on the same day. Number 2, he is the son nearly sacrificed by his father Abraham. Number 3, He is the brother of and spokesman for Moses. Number 4, the mother of King Solomon. Maddox.
For number 1, we have Job. For number 2, we have Isaac. And for number 3, we have Aaron. Aaron.
Aaron. 6 points for those 3. Number 4, Dixon? We do not have it. Bathsheba is the answer. Science. Always, we won't get to that one. That's the end of round 2. We'll come back with our score and the lightning round in just a moment.
Why I teach. I got into teaching to make a difference in my students' lives. It's also my passion. I believe that when students enter my classroom, it's my job to make sure that they have an advocate here at Dixon High School. I think that when students come into a classroom and they know they can be themselves, it makes them better scholars. I also think it's great that I get to geek out every day and teach history. It's really great when both careers and passions come together.
And after 2 rounds, we still have a tie score. Dixon 24, Southwest 24. And we have new players again to meet for both teams.
Nick Sanders, sophomore.
And for Southwest, we have
McKenna Starling, freshman.
Jasmine Johnson, junior.
For our lightning round, all of the answers will begin with a letter N. Ready, players? The Russian word for no. Austin.
9.
Incorrect. One of the 4 cardinal directions. Jackson.
North.
Correct. Any wanderer who has no permanent. Jackson.
Nomad.
Correct. Napoleon crowned himself Emperor of France here. Tristan.
Naples.
Incorrect. A 9-sided polygon. Jackson.
Nonagon.
Correct. Toothed, medium-sized whale that has a tusk. Tristan.
Narwhal.
And that's correct. A 5-cent piece. Tristan.
Nickel.
Correct. Island province off the coast of Quebec, Canada. Alex.
Newfoundland.
Right. Unable to feel in a particular part. Alex.
Numb.
Right. Fictitious prose narrative of book length. Morgan.
Narrator.
Incorrect. Belongs to or active during the night. Jackson.
Nocturnal.
Correct. Someone in love with themselves. Jackson.
Narcissistic.
That's correct. Any place of complete bliss and delight and peace. Alex.
Nirvana.
Right. The writing point of a pen. Made ineffective by counterbalancing the effect of. Nick.
Neutral.
Incorrect. Person telling the story. Morgan.
Narrator.
Right. The magazine Our State is about. Jackson.
North Carolina.
That's right. A subtle distinction or variation. Fruit like a peach without the fuzz. Tristan.
Nectarine.
Right. Of, relating to, or present at birth. All right, the ones we did not get or answered incorrectly. The Russian word for no is niet. Notre Dame is where Napoleon crowned himself emperor. A novel is a fictitious prose narrative of book length. To negate is to make ineffective by counterbalancing. A nuance is a subtle distinction. And of or relating to birth is natal. We'll come back with our final score right after this.
Why I teach. I teach to inspire, to influence, and to instruct our students for the future. I think that education is one of the biggest investments that a nation can make. It's going to make the biggest difference in how successful we are as a nation, and that is the main reason that I decided to become an educator in order to inspire, influence, and instruct. I was inspired by many of my previous teachers, by my parents. Education has always been an important piece of my life, and that is why I'm here.
Final score today is Dixon 46, Southwest 36. This is our last high school academic derby broadcast for this part of the school year, but please, in the new year, join us at this time for Learning Curve, Elementary Academic Derby, and Middle School Academic Derby. And until next year, the high school students bid you a fond farewell.